The sacrificial love of the father in a family ought to be holy. The sacrificial love of the father in a family is supposed to be holy. Welcome again to our YouTube channel. Our God is sufficient for all. Our God is sufficient for all. A father in the family sets the pace of self-giving love. That the father in the family sets the pace of self-giving love. He is the first one to offer, he is expected to offer a sacrificial love for the family. So he becomes the one who sets the pace for self-giving love in the family. Of course, a father may expect his children to love at the level that he loves, to love up to the point where he loves, or he expects them to love as much. Because the scriptures say, there's no student who can be better than the master. So if the father sets the pace of self-giving love, he has to expect that from the children, because they can do as much as the father does. They cannot be better than the father. So he sets the pace of self-giving love in the family. A father in the family is called to be a teacher to his children. He is called to be a teacher to his children by becoming the priest of that family. He is called to be the teacher to his children by becoming the priest of his family. A priest normally is the one who offers sacrifices. And the word or the term sacrifice is derived from two Latin words. One is sacer, from sacerdote, sacer, which means sacred. And the other part, facere, means to make holy. That means when we talk about sacrifice, it means making holy. So that means the sacrifice is set aside for God. So this priest of the family sets aside for God, and therefore God makes it holy. A father in this case, in a family, offers himself or sets himself aside for God in service of his family, and therefore God makes him a holy priest for the family. The father offers himself, sets himself aside for God in service of his family, and therefore is made holy as a priest for his family. The father sets many things aside, and he sets these things aside without complaint. The father must set aside his ego, must set aside his desires, that is selfish desires. He must set aside many temptations that may come his way as a father. He must set aside selfish love for himself, for the sake of his family. That means he sets aside so many things that have to do with him as an individual in service of his family, for the sake of his family. He sets aside his ego in service of the family. He sets aside his selfish love for the sake of the family. He sets aside his desires in service of the family. He sets aside and avoids temptations for self-service in order to serve his family. So for the sake of the family, He sacrifices and sets aside so many things and offers himself to God in order to serve his family. And God makes him the priest, makes him holy in that family. So that means his sacrificial love that he gives to his family is a holy sacrifice. The father in the family must always draw closer to his family, and in doing so, to become vulnerable to his family in order to find his true self. That the father in the family must put every effort to draw closer to his family. And the more he draws closer to his family, the more he becomes vulnerable to his family. And in doing so, he finds his true self. With all the good and with all the bad, he finds his true self in service of his family, in offering sacrificial love for his family. He finds his true self with all the good and with all the bad. The father's vulnerability in the family for the ones that he loves, his family, his vulnerability offers the opportunity for the family to love him back. His vulnerability offers his family an opportunity to love him back, despite of any faults that he may have. His vulnerability offers the family an opportunity to love him back with his weaknesses, with his faults, with his defects. They love him back. He has offered them that opportunity to love him back with all the good and with all the bad. That's when a father finds himself, the true self, with all the good and with all the bad, in service of his family, with sacrificial love, which God makes holy for the sake of the family. The father who is humble in service of the family is capable of bearing the burdens of his family members. A humble father has the ability to bear the burdens of his family. He is able to bear the burdens of his family members. And he does so with love. He bears those burdens of his family with love, without complaint, with a lot of love. The one who has this humility as a father, he always has a vision for charity. A humble father in the family has a vision for charity. Or in other words, he sees many opportunities and many ways to serve the family. He is always seeing opportunities of service. He sees opportunities to serve the family. A father who is a priest to his family always sees the opportunity to serve, even when he is confronted or he faces temptations to serve himself. He always sees the opportunity to serve the family, even when he is confronted with temptations to self-serve or to serve himself. And some ways fathers serve themselves is by fleeing from service. They flee from service. They flee, they run away from sacrificing for the family. They avoid the sacrifice in service of the family. But a humble father sees the opportunity, sees opportunities at all times to serve the family, even when confronted with the temptation to serve the self or to self-serve. In serving the family, the father offers himself to God without complaint. In service of his family, a father offers himself to God without complaint. And that act of service of the father in the family becomes a sacrificial or an offering of the self in serving the family. That serving of the family of the father, in serving the family, he offers himself to God. And that act of service becomes a sacrificial or an offering set aside for God. That act of service to the family becomes an offering set aside for God. So he offers himself, he sets himself aside for God to use him to bless his family. That sacrificial love that the father does in service of the family, that act of service becomes a sacrificial offering, becomes an offering set aside for God to bless his family. So therefore, fathers, offer yourselves for God in the service of your families. Offer yourselves to God and for God in service of your families. And therefore, your service to the family is sacrificial love that becomes a blessing to your family. So my friends, my brothers and sisters, fathers are necessary in our families. As they offer themselves to God, God uses them to bless our families. That act of service from our fathers becomes an offering, a channel of blessings to our families. So fathers, offer yourselves in service of your families, offer yourselves to God, and God use you to bless your families. May God bless you and always embrace your families as fathers. Your place cannot be replaced by anybody else. Nobody can take your place. So therefore, offer yourselves to God in service of your families and become the channel of blessings, a source of blessings to your family. May God bless you and keep you.